Okay. Alright, welcome to the cockpit of an FA-18C Legacy Hornet. We're just going to go through the procedure I use to start up the aircraft, taxi, take off, and land. So, step one would be to go into your briefing and look at what your TACAN and your ILS are. If your carrier has data link, if you're going to need beacons, if you're engaging enemy targets and you don't want to hit friendlies, you need to set your IFF. And at any time, if you need an autopilot, make sure you just know what you're going to use out of this panel here. Also know your altitudes and airspeeds and your waypoints. That should also be in your briefing. And then once you have all that, go ahead and load in the mission and press fly. We're gonna okay. So, first thing that I do is battery switch to the on position. This is technically the next place you're supposed to go to. I'll play through that real quick one time just so you know what it sounds like.
Engine fire left. Engine fire left. Engine fire right. Engine fire right. APU fire. APU fire. Bleed air left. Bleed air left. Bleed air right. Bleed air right.
Okay, so that is your first place that you're supposed to go to, but what I do is I will just go here, hit my APU and let that run up, come to the O-Bogs, then come to my internal lights, external lights, canopy. APU is on, so we'll go to the right engine. Let the right engine run up to 18 RPM, then move it into idle. Canopy is fully closed. Check the seal on it. Might have a little bit of movement. Okay, seal looks good. That's running up, so now we can start turning on our left and right DDIs. AMPCD, which is your advanced multi-purpose color display. Then your HUD, your heads-up display. Both these DDIs, that stands for digital display indicator. So see, they digitally display things that you might need to know while you're in the cockpit. Then I'll turn on my HMD, which basically is just going to display this little heads-up display. Which the reason why it's called HMD is because there's a mounted piece that goes on your helmet, so it stands for helmet mounted display. So this is all your bit failures. They're all being read through here. Fleur, which we don't have a fleur pod on. But if I turn that on, it would run the bit test, and then that fleur not ready would go away. And then something else would pop up that's not done in the jet until everything is complete. You can do every bit in the jet, but I don't recommend. It takes a very long time. You want to just do what you need to with what you need to use. Now that the right engine is up, I'll go left engine. Let that spool up to 18, and while that's doing that, I'll move my radar into standby. and my navigation system into IFA. We'll see the IFA start calculating right here. Left engine, I let it go over 18, but it doesn't hurt the aircraft at all. Okay. For some reason, my keybind is not working right now. Do the buttons in the cockpit currently work? Yes, they do. Okay, well... maybe if I can hit this finger lift manually? I'm not sure why my left engine will not run up. Does the speed brake come up? Okay, left engine is now coming up. Now those RPMs will run up. Now, we'll come over to here. I normally will just go EW. That needs to come on. That needs to go to standby. And that needs to come on. So basically what we did was we put our dispenser into the on position, which is our ALE 47. And now it says P-bit go. Our bit will be running a test on it, or it'll be running a bit test on it. The computer that's in the aircraft will. It'll go to standby. That lets us know it's ready. We'll click that. We'll go to mode. I prefer to go to auto, but there's manual, situational, and auto. Then I go to arm, and I usually change this to 3 and 3 if I'm carrying 60-60, which is a 50% flare and 50% chaff load. I'll save it, go back to the EW, and I'll select HUD. That way all of this information will now be displayed into my HUD. So now we have the SS, which is the carrier, 49 and 49, which is that ship and that ship over there. And then we have, I think it's AE is the ship over there. And so, then I'll come down here, I'll select mode and go map, because I prefer to have this in the black and green display. I don't prefer to have it colored unless I'm going through a valley run of some sort. Now we'll come over here. We will trim. And then we will reset the FCS or flight control system. Now, if we go ahead, switch off of this menu and go to the FCS, flight control system menu, we can see all of that already went through. So now we're getting left and right bleed indicators, so we just bled the air with that knob, and now those indicators have gone away. Now we have INSD go, which just means that this is not ready yet. We have to wait for our navigation system to warm up. Now this is in standby, but I bet it's been in standby for long enough to where I can put it into bit, and after a while it'll either say go or no go. If it says no go, then that means that my electronic countermeasures are not working. If it says go, then I can put it into receive, and my electronic countermeasures are good to go for whenever I need them. This, the ALR 67, basically just your situational awareness. This right here, your ALE 47, is your chaff and flare. Then this is the ALQ 124, I believe it is, which is your electronic countermeasures. We can go ahead and look into here. ASPJ, it says it's in bit, which just means that we have it testing currently, but then after a while it will give us the go or no go. We'll go ahead and put this to ADI now. ADI, we're at 70 feet, which does correlate. And down here, we are set to 70 feet. You can see the 0, that first dash is 50, that 1 is 100, that 2 is 200, 300, with 50s in between them. You can see we're just beyond the 50 mark, which means we are at 70 feet on all 3 of our altitude indicators, which means that that is set. Now we can go to our stores page, check to see whatever we have on board. We have nothing on board. We're completely slick for this mission. So now I am complete with this, and I can go ahead and set that to FCS, just so I have those displays. Our wings are unlocked, so what we're going to do is we're going to click this over 1, put it into the hold position. So now our wings are locked, which lets us look at the rest of this page. Now we'll go into our FCS bit test page. We will look behind us here, and this right here is the FCS bit switch. So we will lift that into the on position. You can see the switch moved, and while holding that, click this, and now you'll see it says in test. And now we'll start to see these numbers bounce around momentarily. No, they won't, because we need to unlock the wings, set to fold. Now we can see our numbers bouncing around. We'll look behind us, and we'll see things moving and switching. Okay, aircraft has gone through the test. We have go for all of them, so that means that that bit test went through and worked perfectly fine. We'll bounce the HSI up to here, because that's how I prefer it. We will move the FCS to down here. We will pull up our checklist and go through our checklist. Now, the reason we have this is because things like this will happen where you have an unarmed ejection seat. So now, controls. We'll look down at this bottom page, move our controls around, see that everything is moving the way we need it to. Then we'll go to wings. Wings are folded, but we're not on the cat yet. We'll have those opened momentarily. Trim, we did trim already. That was this. Hooks and flaps. So flaps are set to full, which is good. Hook is down. Light came on. Once that reaches full extension, we'll pull that back up. Harness, we're not actually in the aircraft VR. Warning lights. So now we'll pull this up. The hook light should go off. There we go. The hook light went off. And now we can test our lights. Okay. Warning lights seem to be working. Nose wheel steering low. We're going to have to put that into high gain momentarily, which gives us better turns. And seat, arm. Arm the ejection seat. Now, everything is good to go. We can reset our master switch. We have the go down here, which means we can slide that out of bit and into receive. So now if I pull up my EW, you can see it no longer says bit, it now says receive. So now we're receive, and auto 1, which means that all 3 of our countermeasures are indeed working. Now, before we take off, we would do checks like our fueling probe check. Full extension, door closes. Close it up. Completely gets put away. Door closes. Okay, we're good to go for that. Now, we will go ahead and just check down, make sure we have everything. O-bogs are on. Trim, reset, probe. Don't have any fuel tanks. Don't need to dump fuel. Position and formation lights set to bright, which is how I like it, especially for a video like this. Landing and taxi light we don't need. Launch bar extend test. L-bar light comes on. Retract, launch bar light comes off. Okay, full flaps, gears down. Okay, don't need the jettison. Parking brake is on, which is good. IFE, which is basically just all these sensors down here letting us know our fuel. We'll set our bingo fuel to probably 3,200. A little more than what we will actually need, but Bingo fuel to 3,200, so we know to stop messing around and get back to the boat. Our IFE also lets us know what our RPMs are, so we're at 65 RPM. The temperature of our engines, which our left one is a little more hot than our right, but that is okay. And also our nozzle position, which if I go full brakes, slide that up, you can see our nozzle moves 85%, 80, 75, 70, 65, 60. 60 is idle. You can also see the temperature of the engine changes, and it will settle back into its original point with the engines. We can see our test did finish here, so that is good. And I prefer to move that into the situational awareness page. So now I know my chaff, my flare, and if there are any other aircraft, I will be able to see them on this map. And we can actually, if we go down to here, and we put our SA page down here, we can actually click map, and we can have our situational awareness page on the map, so we know exactly where all of the aircraft are. So if I see an aircraft moving through this valley and I have map on, I'll know that he's down behind this mountain, and I'll be able to strategically maneuver into a position where I am safest and have the highest possible percentage of a kill shot without him knowing. I usually prefer to have this closed in to 20 nautical miles, or I believe it's standard miles actually, 20 standard miles. I'll bring the FCS page up over here, and I'll maneuver this into the HUD page. Okay, now we can reset our warning light. We know that we have a wing unlocked. No waypoints, I don't believe, so we'll go waypoint and sequence. Nope, no waypoints, so we can turn off waypoint, we can turn off sequence. And now we can start to taxi, so we will lower that, put a little power onto the aircraft, engage nose wheel steering high, and we will begin our taxi. Oof, okay, we won't begin our taxi. We will radio to the ground crew, wheel chocks, and remove.
Chief, remove the wheel chocks.
Copy. Wheel chocks are now removed.
Okay, now we will radio to the ATC, CVN-71. No, to the ground crew, sorry. Ground crew. Request launch. That'll basically just let the AI know in the game that I want to go and get into a cat. Basically, he's going to just maneuver me into a position where I'll be most able to line myself up with this catapult. That's his whole job, is to just get me into that position. Basically, I just follow his signals. If his left arm extends to my right, then I'll just turn into that direction. And then if he just keeps on waving me on, then I'll just continue forward. Once you get in this close, you just kind of make your own minute adjustments to the aircraft and line yourself up. And then he gives me the double fist. Stomp on the brakes so you stop moving as soon as he says. This is to extend my wings, so we will go ahead and spread the wings. That wing will drop down and not hit that guy in the head because he knows where he's supposed to be. And that wing will drop down, and now we will lock that into place with the hold position. So now, the wing is locked. He's telling me to extend my launch bar, so I will do that for him. Okay, he's telling me to taxi forward. This usually takes about 80% RPM, so we'll feel the aircraft hit the launch bar. And we'll power up till we slide slowly right over the top. He'll tell us to stop power. Bring the aircraft back to idle, holding the brakes until everything runs back down. Everything has run down. Okay, he's telling us to raise the launch bar. Okay, now basically he's pointing at himself, so that way we know that he is taking command. He's telling us that, so now we'll look down here, wipe the controls, left and right rudder, make sure everything's working. Look back. We can see everything is working. Left and right rudder. Okay, now we trust. Okay, I did not mean to click that. Let's go ahead and set everything back to where we want it. SA. And now we will also want... I'm drawing a blank right now. We'll want to put this up here. Get it out of my way, because I don't want it. Just an extra hand I don't need. Yeah, that's fine. It's out of the way. Okay, so it says check trim. So it's telling us to check trim, but I don't at the moment know why. Let me check this out. Checklist. So our weight is 37,000 pounds. 12 degrees. We should be okay. We should be okay. Because we're so light. We're only 37,000 pounds, which for this aircraft is pretty light. Sometimes you get up into the 50s and 55,000-ish pounds when you're completely loaded up, full external tanks and things like that. And honestly, we'll go with HSI instead of SA for right now, and set our TACAN, which our TACAN is 7-1, enter, and our ILS is 11, enter. Now we now have the TACAN and ILS up. We can select TACAN. Now we will look over to this guy, and we will radio over to him. But before we radio over to him, we'll go full AB, which is afterburner. Salute. Everyone will drop down to give us their checks. He's going to point to everyone, make sure everyone gives us checks, and then the guys in the shuttle over there, once he points, will send off the end of the boat. Now, we are on the starboard side, or the right side of the boat, which means we need to launch off this side and turn right. Okay, so we launch off the boat, 220 knots, flaps are up. And pitch down real fast. So now you're supposed to only go up to 600 feet at 350 knots. We are at 800 feet, coming up on 350 knots. There it is. For 2.5 miles. And then we'll extend away. Now we've breached that, and we can go wherever we want to. So, while we're in the air, I will just point out some cool things about the F-18. One of them is that right there. We can see we were pulling tons and tons of vapes off the wings and off of the what are called Lexes, or leading edge extensions, which are these things right here that extend back all the way to the wing. So the Lex was installed to give us high maneuverability at low speed. So if I bleed off a ton of airspeed, you can see the W there, which is our nose position, versus the bubble, which is the circle with 3 lines on it, giving us our direction that we're going. We can see that we're actually like drifting almost. So we're going below where our nose is pointing. We're actually headed in that direction when we're facing in that direction. And so you can see we're turning just fine at these very, very low speeds. And that's because of these leading edge extensions being able to grab the wind the way it does. It's a lot of science and math that goes into that. I don't know all the specifics. I just know that the Lexes allow us to make that change in maneuverability versus a fighter that's maybe delta wing or something like that. So, something else that's pretty cool is the acceleration at full afterburner. So we can see we are accelerating extremely fast in full AB. If a car were to try to accelerate to get to 200 miles an hour, the world record from 0 to 200 is some 28 seconds or somewhere around there, I believe. But in about 30 seconds, we've reached around 600 miles an hour. What's displayed is nautical miles an hour, which is faster than miles an hour. So 560 nautical miles an hour is going to be a little bit more than actual miles per hour. So we're actually going around 600 miles an hour. Now our G limiter. So you can see that we have actually pulled 6.2 Gs, which I think is right around what we need to be at for our G limiter. Let me check. 6.9 is what we're allowed. So that means that without damaging the aircraft, we can pull about 6.9 Gs. So let's see what we can get at 520 miles an hour. There's 7.3. So just quick snap turn. That's what the aircraft will allow us to get to. Because there's actually something in the aircraft that allows us to not rip off the wings. And then if we gradually pull back on the stick, we can work into that 6.9. 6.7, 8. And we can just sustain that right there without damaging the aircraft. And we're actually flying around this circle very fast. 6.9, come off the stick a little. So you can see this aircraft has a lot of systems in it that will protect itself. Whether that's from the pilot themselves or from enemy aircraft and other adversaries that may be out there. And then another thing that's pretty cool is this thing's flight ceiling. So if we just yank the plane over and just go straight up in the air, we'll just come right through these clouds right here. Those clouds are probably around 20,000-ish feet. So there's 90 degrees, so that's completely nose high. We're getting pretty slow, 21,000 feet. So it's a little higher than I thought, around 25,000. We'll roll the plane over, and now we're in these clouds. So we're not even at the surface ceiling of this aircraft. It's actually around 40-ish thousand feet. So we're only about halfway there, and you can see how little those boats have gotten. If I come out of these clouds real quick. So you can see how little the boats have gotten because of how far away we've gotten. We're about 5-ish miles in the air. So we're higher than all those mountains over there, which, if you remember from me looking around while we were on the carrier, those mountains were pretty high up before we got up here, and now they look pretty small. So what we can do is we can power back up and edge the nose up a little bit. And at full afterburner, we'll continue to accelerate until we hit about 30,000 feet, and then we'll see our acceleration start to drop pretty drastically, to be honest. So it gets pretty difficult to climb in altitude. We might be able to reach those clouds up there, potentially. Maybe not, though. That ceiling looks to be pretty high. Maybe right around 40,000-ish. So what you would want to do here is you can see we're actually dropping in speed. So we're going to drop our flaps to full, and that will allow us to sustain our speed a little bit better as we climb. Yeah, these clouds might be out of reach for us, especially if I'm trying to turn. There's 36,000 feet. Still at full afterburner, which means we're pumping out a ton of fuel, but we've also reached the maximum fuel efficiency of the aircraft, so we're not burning through fuel as fast as we would if we were down on the ground, because you don't need as much fuel the higher you get. So we have actually just hit the cloud cover. And these clouds up here are very, very thin because of how thin the atmosphere is. So you really won't run into clouds that are all that thick at this altitude. See, we can just see right through them, right to the ground. Like they're not even there. And there's 43,000 feet. And the pressure at these altitudes, the cabin actually needs to stabilize. So there's a cabin pressure mode somewhere over here. I can't remember. Right here, yes. Cabin pressure, normal, dump, or ram. And that will change the aircraft's cabin pressure. It won't change it, it'll change how it receives it. Because you need to stay at the proper pressure to the outside world, outside of the cockpit. So if you were to eject at these types of altitudes, you would probably just black out because of the instantaneous change in pressure. And that would not be good. So we're actually 18 miles from the carrier, but it doesn't look like that we're that far because we're actually just higher. So that 20 miles right there is altitude and distance on the ground. So it puts the two together and creates a direct angle in distance to the target. So now we'll actually head over to these valleys. It looks like that was the valley I was giving the example about over there with the SA or situational awareness page. Being able to sneak up on a target. And I'll do a little low level. Come back on the throttles and dump the nose, start to accelerate. Probably getting to around the 600 miles an hour area, or 600 nautical miles an hour, sorry, area. We'll go ahead and change this to, what should we change this to? We have a little while because of how high up we are. Yeah, we've only flew 5,000 feet downwards. So we'll just pull up the FCS and situational page. Actually, you know what? We'll put the FCS back up here, and we'll go to FCS down here. Turn on our map, and we'll fly to that valley over. Now I'm going to go back into full afterburner, and look at how fast this acceleration is. It's pretty cool. So we're flying faster than the speed of sound. We're at 1.16 Mach, which is very fast. 1.22, 25, and we're going over 700 nautical miles an hour, or sorry, miles per hour at the moment. And so now I'm actually in mill power, which is not full afterburner, which max would be full afterburner. And we're still going faster than the speed of sound with this slight nose down authority or angle of attack. And so that'll allow us to enter this valley pretty quick. Just under the speed of sound now, 0.9998. Still moving pretty quick. This right here is a gun reticle. You can actually change this to things like bore sight mode, or this is kind of like bore sight mode. So this is bore sight once you're in the HUD, and then if you look out, you'll see the circle stays in the helmet mounted display, which means I can lock up targets all the way to 90 degrees of me, and then once you get beyond that point, you can no longer lock up a target. Still going 0.94 Mach. We'll go ahead and disable that air-to-air mode, and we'll pull up what we wanted from earlier. Our HUD and our DS page. Now the low level. This is where things will get interesting because if you don't pay attention for just half a second at these types of altitudes, then you'll just run right into the ground.
Roll left, roll left. Roll right, roll right.
So I'm getting a little quieter because I'm a little more in tune with my surroundings and making sure that I'm paying attention to what's going on. But with a lot of practice and doing this a lot of times, you can get better and better at it. Like being able to judge distances, like this little crevice right here. Being able to perfectly fit through there at the correct speeds. Or being able to fly directly over the top of a single tree.
Pull up, pull up! Well right, well right!
Now I've just done a 180. We're heading back in the other direction. Mostly because we're running a little low on gas. But yeah, I also don't want to go through this valley all the way. Because that'll take a long time.
Altitude.
You can see the light hitting the cockpit now as we come out of the valley. We'll just ride this valley back to the ocean. I believe just off to our left will pop out. Yeah, that seems to be the case. And you can see we actually broke the G limit because our G limit is 7.5. We hit 7.6, which is kind of hard to do actually, because this aircraft will get slow pretty quick. And something else is something called fly-by-wire. It means that we can go upside down, and with the slightest bit of forward pressure on the stick, we can continue level flight. Takes a little bit of practice. I'm not great at it because I don't just fly upside down. But yeah, that's something pretty cool about this aircraft. Okay, we are 31 miles out from the carrier, so we'll go ahead and turn our nose onto them, onto the boats. They're now off to our right. Cannot see them from this distance, but they're definitely out there. You have zoom. I might be able to zoom in. Oh, yep, there they are. Once you zoom out, they're just gone. You can barely even see them while you're zoomed in. But they're definitely there. We're still going pretty quick, so that way we can get back to the carrier a little bit faster. Yeah, we'll keep that stuff on. I'm now going to get into my landing configuration that I usually do. Now deselect that.
Marshall,
We'll tell the carrier that we are now inbound.
167413, Angels, Warp, State 4.6.
Says we're still 31 miles from the carrier, but we're obviously not. I don't know what is up with that.
Scattered clouds at 8,000. Altimeter is 2993. Case 1 recovery. Expected DRC 352. Report see me at 10.
We're still not quite 10 miles out from the carrier. We can tell that by zooming in on our bottom or our top right panel there. That would let us know if we're 10 miles out. We can drop the hook though at this point, as long as we stay right around 350 knots or less. I did not pay attention to the BRC, which is not a good thing necessarily. Which, if you don't know what the BRC is your base recovery course. Okay, we look to be coming up on 10 nautical miles here. So we're just going to
190.
report that we see him at 10. Okay, now we're going to
Switched out.
fix this.
190. State 4.5.
Okay, right about there seems to be
Tower,
where we want it.
190. Overhead Angels 2. State 4.5.
Okay, so now we have switch towers. We're going to descend to 800 feet now that they have told us that the signal is Charlie.
190.
Going to fly just right of the carrier, staying right around 380 knots. Or 350, sorry. Knots. And 800 feet. Okay, well there's 800 feet. There's 350 knots. We'll call the kiss off, which basically just means that we are now into the brake. Pull the throttle to idle. Pull back on the stick to match your speed. All the way down to 250 knots. Okay, and we will continue to pull around the boat. There's 250 knots. Gear is now down. Flaps to full. Descend to around 550-ish feet, maybe a little higher than that as we come around. I need to ascend. Okay, we seem to be doing okay for ourselves at the moment. Pretty good speed. We just need to fix our lineup here. We're low and not far enough to the right. But we're going to be coming in to the pattern that we need to be at in a moment here. Still a little low. Still a little left. But we're pulling the carrier around. And right around there is what we want to be at. Still want to come a little right. A little fast. You want to get a little slower, lift the nose up a little bit more. There we go. Telling us power, so we need to gain altitude. Okay, so it was a 3-wire. Pretty bad landing, to be honest. Not gonna lie. In real life, probably would have had a wave off call even. But now we can deselect that. Hold it. We can now go into high gain, nose wheel steering. That way we can taxi off of the runway. Right here. Go ahead, taxi off to the side. And now the Hornet can actually stick the pilot off the end of the aircraft carrier because the nose wheel is behind the pilot, so we can get a little bit further out. Right about there is the maximum you're probably going to get without going off of the end. I don't even know if we're going to be able to turn without falling off the end of the boat. I'm not going to lie. We may have maxed it out. Oh, no. Perfect. Okay, so that's the max amount of tightness you can get to the end of the boat without just falling off. Now we'll taxi up to about A little further out, maybe. About here, and then we'll go full right again. Slowly, 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 slowly come around to about there. Then we will flip that and pull it out. That's the parking brake set, so we can get off of the rudder brakes. First thing I would do is turn off my lights besides the strobe lights, so that way people around me know that the aircraft is still up and running. Because people have headsets on, or earmuffs that will stop them from realizing that the aircraft is still running, but the strobes will be an indicator. O-bogs are off, which means we need to now open up the cockpit. That is now coming up. Full extension. Make sure that these little pegs come out of their little slot that they're supposed to sit in. The peg, the slot, so that's good. And now we will just go around the cockpit from right to left. So we didn't need radar for this. That was just an example, but we can turn that off. Now we will go all the way around with that. Now that is off. You can see master caution, wing unlocked, which is a true story. We can go ahead and lock that actually. Okay, that is locked. So now that'll go off. INSD go, which basically means we just turn that off. It's not running. The canopy is open. And INS, which is just this thing, ATT saying it's just off pretty much. It's not working at the moment, which is true. We turned it off. So now we can reset that, so that way we will get another notification the next time something happens, like this, that something is wrong. No notification for that though, which is a little weird. You can deselect TAC and deselect the ILS, and we can turn that off by going clear, off, clear, clear, ILS, clear, off, clear, clear. Now that is off, which means we can now turn that off, which that may even give us, no, this down here will give us a pop-up. FCS, still no pop-up. Interesting. Okay. Right to left, right. So now we can go lights, off, off, that's off, that's off, that's off. We don't need to bleed air. We haven't gotten that notification yet. All those are good. Okay, we'll now come to our right. HMD is now off. So now if we look around, that is indeed off. That's off. This down here is now off. We no longer need this. ECM is off. Okay, the dispenser switch is now off. That is off. The HUD now off. That is off. We need this on for right now. We need that on for right now. We can reset the bingo to 0 though, because we no longer need a bingo fuel warning.
Bingo. Bingo.
Reset that. Okay, now continuing to the left, flaps are half, that is up, that is off, anti-skid is on, parking brake is set, hook bypass set to carrier, not field because we are on the carrier. Comm channels and ground powers and things like that are all good. They're all set to the center position, which is where you need them. This is down, APU is off, neither engine crank is on, probe is in. We don't have any external tanks, or bags as they are normally referred to. Don't need to reset the trim, don't need to reset the FCS, don't need to override the gain. Volume can stay max even if we turn off the aircraft. Don't need those. Don't need any of this. Don't need any of these. O-bogs are off. Okay, so that's good. So now we can go left engine into idle, which that will give us a caution switch saying left gen. So now that the left gen is down, we can actually pull this into the off position, which will change our position 1 hydraulics. You can see that the arrow for position 1 is now slowly sliding around, and it will end up into the 0 position after some time. And we can also see left gen, flaps are off, INS DGO, INS TT, Canopy, and FCS. The reason why the FCS popped up is because the engines and generators need to be on in order for our FCS to work, or flight control system. So there goes the hydraulics. It's running all the way down. It'll eventually reach 0, and our flight surface's response time will now be a little slower. It's still fast because it's an aircraft that needs to be extremely maneuverable, but it is still slower than it was. We'll now see left AMAD PR, which that is fine. I don't know what that does, but that is something. I'd have to look into it. Hydraulics 1A and hydraulics 1B are off. We can see that running down there. And now we can reset because we already know that all that stuff happened. Now these X's are for the left engine and for everything that just is basically popping up right here. Check that. Yes, that is now down to 0. Left gen is off. Now we can turn this off and run down the right engine. And now we can reset that, which once we reset it, the FCS will come off of our master caution light. Right gen will pop up momentarily, I believe, saying that the right gen is now down. Also, the hydraulics for stage 2 have already gone all the way to 0. Right gen is taken down. Now we will do a final assessment of the aircraft before shutting off the power. Off. We can bring this to dim if we would like, but mainly off. Off. Mainly off. Just battery switch. There's FCS. So now we can FCS reset. And also the reset would get rid of any sort of right gen that's going to pop up, so that will no longer pop up. Hook is up. Wings are set to hold in the up position. Or in the folded position, sorry. HMD is off. IR cool was never put on, but it is off. You don't really need that. This is off. This is off. All those are off. These are off. The HUD is off. Left DDI is off. Master arm switch is safe. Air to air and air to ground is off. IFE can now be brought down. In real life, this would turn all this off, but it doesn't. It is not modeled currently in the game, in the aircraft. Flaps that I have. Gear is locked into place. Launch bar is up. Don't need jettison. We are set for parking brakes. Anti-skid is on, which is where it needs to be. Landing gear, lights and taxi is off. Hook bypass set to carrier. Those are good. That's good. Formation and position lights are off. Strobe can now come off before the battery goes off. APU is off. No external tanks. Rudder, trim, and FCS reset, as well as gain is fine. No engine cranks running, which is good. That's all good. That is all good. That is all good. No oxygen flow is good. Now we have our strobes set off, which lets everyone know that this aircraft is now shut down. Though we still do have the battery on, so we can make one final call to the ground crew to go to wheel chocks and place the wheel chocks. It's now outside the aircraft.
Wheel chocks are now in place.
We can't see it because we can't get far enough outside of the aircraft, but the wheel chocks will now be placed. And we can now go ahead and shut down the power. Now if we F2, sorry, that's the number 2. If we F2, the wheel chocks are in place and the aircraft is shut down. If I move the flight stick, it will move in the aircraft. If we can grab this here and zoom in, we can see my character moving the flight stick around, but nothing happens with the rest of the wings. And now if we go ahead and throttle up, no throttle will change. You see? So that is everything set. Now, some things that I'd like to go over. So the speed that we saw earlier is indicated by that little weird thing that sticks out and then points straight. That's called a pitot tube, which allows air, ram air, to hit it while the aircraft is flying. Then some sensors and gauges and things will calculate how fast you're going based off the air entering the tube and display your airspeed into the aircraft. Just above it, there's like a little pointy stick that comes out right there, and that is your AOA indicator. And there's one on either side of the aircraft. The other one is right there, and that is basically just to let the aircraft know if it's pointing up, left, down, right, all around basically. These bubbles are, from my understanding, for the radar on either side of what is called the radome, or the nose of the aircraft. That little metal thing on top of the radome is the gun muzzle, and the gun barrel extends into the back of that and then down into the belly of the aircraft, and that little panel right there is where you would go to, I believe, reload the gun. Or no, over on this side is how you would reload the gun. On this side, that panel is to refuel the aircraft while it's on the carrier or on the flight deck. Anywhere. Over here are the intakes. They're little semicircles that suck in air and allow the aircraft to fly. These are the trailing edge flaps. These are the leading edge flaps. These are the Lexes. You can see how far they extend, which we were talking about when it comes to pulling high AOA or angle of attack. Wow, that sun was like perfectly reflecting right off of that light bulb right there to hit us right in the face. That's horrible. These are your horizontal stabilizers, vertical stabilizers, rudder. This on the part of the wing that is in the air, that is your aileron, which rolls you left and right. These put you up and down, and these basically push you left to right. So these will roll you left and right. These will turn you left and right, and these will push you up and down, so you can go anywhere you want. These little stabs right here that come out of the Lexes are basically just airflow disruptors, so that way the airflow doesn't rip the vertical stabs off of the aircraft, because these Lexes create a ton of pressure on those, and so that's why those were installed. Underneath here, these are just stations, the 4 stations, and then there's also a station on the center line, and then stations on either side of the intakes for missiles, bombs, anything, fuel tanks, anything that you may need. Antennas sticking off the bottom, antennas sticking off the top, more bubbles that I don't know what they do. That strip of lights right there is your formation lights on either side. Also formation lights that are running down the side of the vertical stabilizer and also across the back of the engine. And it's the same way on the other side as well, across the back of the engine and across the bottom. That is the squadron right there. That's the Gladiators, or VFA 106. It should say, does not say VFA 106 on this thing anywhere. It just says Gladiators. But yeah, it's VFA 106, and it's basically a Marine and Navy pilot training squadron. This is the C variant of the F-18. The D variant would have had 2 people in there, 2 seats. And then there's the E variant, which is the Super Hornet. It has square intakes, is the biggest giveaway. It also has larger leading edge extensions and no stab coming out of its Lexes. And that would be the single seat version of the Super, and the F is the 2-seat version of the Super, which also has those same leading edge extension mods and intake mods. The intake mods changed to reduce the radar cross section and things like that, which has to do with the electronic countermeasures and a whole bunch of stuff, which is a whole nother video in itself, but basically that's what it does. So yeah, thank you for watching this video, and I hope you all enjoyed.